A dry, sharp gunshot echoed across the prairie, tearing the stillness of the twilight. It was the sound of a Colt peacemaker, cold and merciless. Clint Stonewall Hawkins, hunched over, mending a rotting wooden fence, straightened up. His eyes, squinting from over 40 years of sun and wind, were now as sharp as a honed blade. He didn't look toward the sound, but toward the black crows swooping down from the blood-red sky. They were death's first messengers, never mistaken. The vast Texas sky, with its fiery red and charcoal purple clouds, promised a night of storms. Clint gripped his Winchester, the hot feeling of wood and steel a familiar comfort. He knew death was riding straight for his ranch. It always was. Ever since he'd left his past behind, seeking refuge in the solitude of this land, he'd felt its shadow. He remembered nights in New Mexico, fighting beside Jeb, both of them craving death as a release, but he had found a kind of peace here, where the smell of red dirt and gunpowder blended, and he had thought he'd escaped. He was wrong. Hooves pounded, then fell silent. After that, a short, choked scream, a loud thud, a figure darted through a patch of cacti, collapsing near the well. It was a Comanche warrior, clothes tattered, a bullet wound in his side bleeding. The red blood on the yellow sand spread out like a dying flower. He scrambled towards the dangling bucket, his breath ragged and painful, each inhale a groan. Clint stepped out of the barn's shadow, rifle raised, no words. His breath was thick with the smell of gunpowder and dry dust. The Comanche looked up, his black eyes unflinching, but full of wariness, like a wolf at bay. His gaze followed Clint's every move, every slight tremor of his finger on the trigger. They both knew a single mistake would cause more blood to spill. Water. The Comanche's voice was hoarse, a single word heavy with meaning. Clint lowered his rifle slowly, as if deciding fate. He took the bucket, filled it, and placed it within the man's reach. It wasn't an act of compassion. It was a choice. The choice to be a man, not a ruthless cattleman. It was the difference between living and just existing, a lesson learned from a lifetime of war and loss. The Comanche drank in desperate gulps. Once his thirst was quenched, he touched the bone amulet on his neck. He pulled a small fragment from it, touched it reverently, and placed it in Clint's palm. A life for a life. Blood for water, the Comanche whispered, his English fluent and dignified. Clint felt the bone's coldness. He didn't need a debt. He just did what he thought was right. Suddenly, the pounding of hooves returned. Dozens of them, fast, furious. A giant dust storm rolled in from the west. Both men looked toward it, tension rising. "These are not ordinary people," Shikoba said, his name. "They are hunters, and they have no compassion." Clint knew. He had been a hunter. He knew that a simple act of mercy was enough to turn them both into prey. Then they appeared. 4 men on horseback, led by a hulking figure in a long black leather coat and a wide-brimmed cowboy hat. His face was a mask of cold emptiness. It was Marshal Jebediah, Jeb Thorne, a fellow soldier from years ago. The animosity between them ran deeper than war scars. Jeb slid off his horse, pistol holstered loosely. He glanced at Clint, then at the blood trail. A cruel smile appeared on his face. "Well, Stonewall," Jeb said, his voice cold. "Still alive, are you? Thought a boring old man like you would have rotted away." Clint didn't reply. He stood there, shielding the Comanche. Jeb moved closer, his eyes scanning the ranch. He missed nothing. "I followed a blood trail," Jeb said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "It led me straight to your well. See anyone strange, friend?" Clint gestured to his horse. "Wounded horse. It wandered in. I saved it." Jeb laughed, then stopped. His eyes fell on a dried puddle of blood. "Horse blood doesn't stick to a man's boots, Stonewall." He knelt, touching the blood. "Unless you're planning a blood feast, I think someone else has been here." Jebediah Thorne knelt, his finger tracing the dried blood. His face was a taut mask of a razor's edge. His cold eyes never left Clint. "I'll ask again, Stonewall," he said, his voice rumbling like thunder. "Have you seen anyone strange here?" Clint remained calm. Every muscle in his body was tense. One wrong answer. One ill-timed blink. guns would be drawn. I told you, Jeb. No one. Horse blood. Horse blood isn't caked with dirt, Jeb said. He tossed a small, blood-stained feather at Clint's feet. This is from a predator. A small sound came from behind Clint. Shikoba had shifted, accidentally bumping the well. Jeb heard it. He smirked, slowly reaching for his gun. Or perhaps a two-legged talking predator. Clint's hand shot up. Thorne, don't be stupid. You already were when you saved him, Stonewall. Jeb sneered. Jeb drew his gun. Faster, a young man, Billy Fingers. McCoy, the youngest deputy, blocked his arm. Billy's face was young, his blue eyes bewildered. He secretly dreamed of a peaceful life, of a small saloon in Denver. That dream was all he had. It was what made him unable to watch a man be slaughtered. Wait, Marshal, Billy's voice stammered. He's wounded. We have to take him to Fort Richardson for trial. That's the law. Jeb looked at Billy with contempt. The law? Out here I am the law, and my law says shooting a savage saves a bullet for a good man. He shoved Billy aside. Step aside, kid. Don't make me regret taking you on. As tension peaked, Shikoba stood up, his gaze meeting Jeb's. Blood seeped from his wound. I am not a predator, Thorne. His voice was firm. I am Shikoba, son of Chief Big Buffalo. I came for justice, to expose your crimes. Jeb laughed wildly. Shikoba? The savage who wanted a peace treaty? You're a dead man. You shot me, Thorne, at the meeting with Colonel Morrison. You thought I'd die, but I survived. I will expose everything, Shikoba said. Jeb's face went from cold to seething rage. Shoot him! Now! He aimed his gun at Shikoba. Clint lunged, a powerful shoulder check sending Jeb staggering. Billy drew his own gun, pointing it at Jeb's back. I said, Marshal, there must be a trial. The other two deputies hesitated. Jeb turned furiously to Billy. You're betraying me? You won't make it out of here alive. Clint gestured to Shikoba. Go, now, run west. Shikoba shook his head. No, this fight is not mine alone. It is for all people. I will die for it. The night fully descended, a pitch-black shroud over the prairie. The wind howled through the mountain pass, a low, mournful sound, carrying the chirping of crickets. Jeb and his two deputies with Billy formed a tense circle. Jeb moved to the campfire. Flames danced on his face, highlighting his cruel features. He looked at Clint. You can't change my nature. You were once part of me. You think words will change anything? Jeb sneered. Who'll believe a savage like you? Colonel Morrison believed me, Shikoba replied, his voice weakening. He wrote a letter revealing everything about you and the men smuggling weapons to my tribe. That's why you shot him and framed me. Jeb laughed hollowly. You're making things up. But his face was no longer certain. No, he's not. Billy's voice trembled. I saw the crates, the ones that should have gone to Fort Richardson. They were transferred to men who shouldn't have guns. Billy remembered seeing those crates, the fear, the confusion. He thought of his dream, a life without violence. He couldn't become a criminal. Jeb turned to Billy. You're just a kid. Don't talk about things you don't understand. I'll forgive you. One more word and I'll choke you. I don't believe you anymore, Jeb, Clint said, his voice low and firm. He recalled fighting alongside Jeb, an unbeatable team. But time and greed had turned him into a monster. You're not the man I knew. You've become a greedy devil. Jeb turned back to Clint. I changed. You're the one who changed. You were a warrior, a man I could trust. Now you're a cowardly farmer, protecting your enemy. That's right, Clint said. I'm not a warrior. I'm a human being, and I won't let you kill an innocent man. Jeb stepped back, eyes sweeping over Clint, Billy, and the deputies. He saw no trust, only doubt. He remembered his youth, wanting to be a hero. Then the war shattered it all. Too much death, too much brutality. He lost his faith in everything. He believed only power brought security. He'd sold his soul for it. You wouldn't understand, Jeb said, full of indignation. You don't know what I went through. Blood and mud. No one by my side. I had to fight just to survive. So did I, Clint said. But I didn't choose your path. I chose to live. You chose to die. Shikoba, weary, pulled a worn envelope from his pouch. This letter will expose everything, he said. The names of the smugglers, the conspirators. Jeb lunged. Shikoba threw the letter to Billy. Billy caught it. Jeb drew his gun and fired. The bullet grazed Billy's ear. Billy fell. Clint charged. A kick to Jeb's hand. Jeb dropped his gun. They lunged at each other, fighting like wild animals. Dust flew. Punches landed. Groans of pain. Billy, heart pounding, struggled to his feet. He picked up the letter. He wasn't thinking about his saloon. Only the truth. He knew he was doing the right thing. He wasn't betraying his convictions. The two deputies were bewildered. Hawkins, who had been with Jeb for years, felt a deep confusion. He no longer knew what he was fighting for. He saw two monsters destroying each other. Under Clint's punches, Jeb remembered their friendship. They shared secrets, fears. War changed everything. He saw too much death, too much brutality. He believed only money and power brought security. He sold his soul for it. Clint, under Jeb's punches, remembered his wife's last words. Live. Find peace. He'd found it here. Now he knew peace wasn't about running. It was about fighting to protect it. Their fight was a clash of philosophies. Resentment, greed, and cruelty versus compassion, sacrifice, and hope. Billy stood, clutching the letter. He looked at Hawkins. He saw the bewilderment in his eyes. Mr. Hawkins, Billy's voice was full of conviction. This letter will expose everything. You can trust me. We can do the right thing. Hawkins hesitated. Jeb saw it. He screamed, Hawkins, shoot the kid, now! A sharp crack of a pistol shot cut through the night. A sickening thud. It wasn't Shikoba's blood. It was Billy's. He'd thrown himself in front of Shikoba. He fell. His hand still clutched the letter. Red dust billowed. Billy's gun spun on the cracked ground. His eyes were wide open, reflecting the fiery sky. Blood from his wounds seeped into the letter. Hawkins groaned. The stupid kid. I didn't mean to. No, you didn't, Jeb said, eyes full of satisfaction. But he died for his stupidity. I told you, out here, kindness is a mistake. Shikoba approached Billy. You did the right thing, he said, his voice full of respect. You were a good man. Billy smiled, then died. The letter fell, stained with his blood. Billy's sacrifice changed everything. The two deputies saw Jeb's brutality. They couldn't ignore it. Marshal, one said, voice trembling, we can't follow you anymore. Jeb sneered. You think you can arrest me? Ha ha. But Jeb didn't know Hawkins' shot had echoed across the prairie. It had sent a signal. Jeb stood his ground, facing the two deputies. He showed no fear. He knew he'd lost, but he wouldn't die easily. He dragged them to hell with him. He glanced at Clint. You won, Stonewall, but you're going to pay. Then came the sound of hooves, a massive sound, like a storm. It echoed through the valley, a roll of thunder. The wind howled. Red dust rose, obscuring the dark sky. Jeb's eyes changed. He recognized the sound. The Comanche. Chief Big Buffalo. No way, Jeb whispered. How did he get here? Shikoba smiled. You forgot one thing. I am not the only one in this land, and I sang a song for them. A song of courage, a song of sacrifice, and they heard. Jeb looked at Clint. You helped him, you bastard. I just did what a man has to do, Clint replied. I gave a thirsty man water. The storm of hooves arrived. Dozens of Comanche warriors. No guns, just bows and arrows. They had no intention of fighting. They surrounded Jeb and his men. Chief Big Buffalo dismounted, an old man, his face full of dignity. He looked at Jeb, then Shikoba. He looked at Billy. Finally, he looked at Clint. You are the man who helped my son? He asked, his voice low and powerful. The man who believed in him? I gave him water, Clint replied. He gave me a piece of bone that saved my life. The chief smiled. You did the right thing. He extended his hand toward Jeb. Thorne, he said, you took the life of a good man, but you couldn't take the truth. Jeb drew his gun. No escape. He was cornered. He aimed at the chief. "I won't go alone," Jeb screamed. But before he could pull the trigger, a deputy shot his hand. Jeb screamed in pain. His gun fell. He was captured. The first light of dawn filtered through the mountains, painting the sky red. The dust had settled. The air was still. The only sounds were the wind and the faint chirping of crickets. Jeb and Hawkins were tied on their horses, guarded by the deputies. The Comanche warriors stood silent and proud. Clint stood by the well, watching Chief Big Buffalo tend to Shikoba's wound with herbs and bandages. Clint felt a rare sense of relief. He had done the right thing. He looked at Billy, a blanket covering him. He picked up Billy's old Colt and placed it on his chest. He remembered Billy's dream. It was extinguished, but not in vain. Billy's sacrifice brought justice. It was the courage Clint had once had, and lost. The chief stood up and walked to Clint. He looked at him with respect. "You saved my son," he said, his voice low and powerful. "You didn't act like a normal man. You acted like a warrior." Clint shook his head. "I'm not a warrior, just a farmer." "No," the chief said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "A warrior isn't one who kills. It's one who stands to protect what is right. You are a warrior, Clint Hawkins. You are a brother." The chief extended his hand. Clint took it. It was a promise, a connection. He felt a warmth and pride. He had lived a lonely life. Now he had a family he had created himself. The Comanche began to move. Shikoba, weak, stood up. He walked to Clint, his eyes full of gratitude. "You saved me," Shikoba said faintly. "You saved my life and the peace treaty. What you did will be remembered." Clint nodded. "I don't want anything, just for the truth to be revealed." "It will be revealed," Shikoba said. "Jebediah Thorne will face justice. The smugglers will be found. And that boy's name," Shikoba looked at Billy, "will be honored. He died a hero." Shikoba handed Clint a small leather pouch with a feather inside. "It is a symbol of our brotherhood, a promise that if you need us, we will come." Clint took it. A warm feeling spread through his heart. The deputies led Jeb and Hawkins away. Jeb was still screaming and cursing. The sound of hooves faded. The Comanche rode east, disappearing into the morning mist. The ranch returned to its quiet. Clint sat by the campfire listening to the wind howl. The silver moonlight illuminated the red dust. He saw the ghosts of Billy, Jeb, Shikoba, and himself in the flames. A past of blood. A future of hope. He was no longer a lonely man. He had found a purpose. Clint knelt, picking up a handful of dirt. It was dry but felt warm in his hand. He squeezed it tightly. He knew. Everything would be different. He walked to the fence where he had started. He began to repair it, slowly. This time, Clint wasn't fixing a fence. He was mending himself.